For the United States, military casualties included roughly 15 deaths and over 500 personnel wounded in action. Iranian casualties represent a much larger demographic shock. Between 3,000 and 6,000 people were killed. Crucially, the burden fell heavily on the civilian population, alongside 15,000 to 26,000 injured. When you tally the physical casualties across all sides, over 60,000 human lives were ended or permanently altered right at the geographic center of the violence. These losses represent a permanent reduction in human capital that persists long after a signed ceasefire. The impact shifts the metric of the war away from territory gained and toward the human void created in the families and communities left behind. Beyond the loss of life, the conflict triggered structural damage that both nations absorbed differently. For the United States, that damage took the form of a massive capital hemorrhage. This chart shows the financial velocity of the early conflict. In the first 6 days alone, the U.S. spent over $11 billion. That represents an active burn rate of roughly $1.8 billion every single day to maintain precision missiles, naval deployments, and aircraft operations. That financial hemorrhage included the destruction of highly advanced systems. Radar installations, aircraft, and operational infrastructure worth billions were wiped out, instantly erasing years of technological investment. Iran absorbed the shockwave directly into its physical foundation. Airstrikes dismantled power grids, industrial facilities, and critical oil and energy sectors, leaving the core systems of the domestic economy in ruin. These differing outcomes show how the exact same war extracts an asymmetric price. The United States loses capital and technological capacity, while Iran loses the foundational infrastructure of its domestic life. A conflict of this scale cannot remain isolated. The physical destruction spilled directly across borders, destabilizing neighboring regions. The resulting regional instability displaced millions of civilians across the Gulf. In Lebanon alone, the violence contributed to over 2,500 deaths. This map illustrates the physical vulnerability of systemic economic interconnectivity. The Strait of Hormuz sits right in the conflict zone, and 20% of the global oil supply flows through this single maritime artery. When missiles fly near that choke point, the international markets react instantly. As the regional instability escalated, global oil prices spiked by 50%. That international oil shockwave traveled straight back to the American homefront. Higher global fuel prices inflated domestic production and shipping, driving manufacturing costs to a 4-year high. A localized military strike in the Middle East forces a factory halfway across the world to pay more for its raw materials, bypassing national borders to directly tax the global economy. When the active airstrikes finally cease and the battlefield goes quiet, the most persistent damage is the long-term strategic fallout. The aftermath triggered a worldwide surge in military spending. Nations watching the conflict reevaluated their own vulnerabilities, leading to a buildup of defensive capabilities and the rapid shifting of international alliances. Trust in global diplomacy deteriorated. When international channels fail to stop a massive exchange of missiles, a vacuum is created, increasing the mathematical likelihood of larger conflicts breaking out in the future. The forensic ledger of this war is clear. The U.S. burned through tens of billions of dollars. Over 60,000 people were killed or injured, and the entire global trade network was destabilized, triggering widespread economic inflation. In a fully interconnected world, a contained war is a myth. Militaries may still declare victory by drawing new lines on a map, but the true cost of conflict is measured in everything those lines fail to protect.